What is up, everybody? Today's edition of Alarm Fantasy Football is here. Howard Bender, not here. That's okay. He's sticking with some baseball. I mean, baseball just started. Such a long season. Him and Jim Bowden got to be hot on the take machine for hardball. But that means I get to bring my friends on this show and keep rocking with the football. We've already done a couple best ball drafts. I brought in some best ball goons for my squad, but we're going to pivot here. For this is draft month, so shows this month are about the draft. And who better to bring in than my guy, Jim Coventry of RotoWire of SiriusXM. Let me ask you first question, Jim. How many pages of notes do you have on this draft class so far?
On the draft class specifically, we're looking at 230.
so there's a book available to my guy Jim Coventry. We're gonna pick his. I mean, you sent me your notes for just the Super Bowl game, and it was like 20 pages. Oh, amazing stuff. That's why I was like, look, I want to do 3 shows: one on wide receivers, one on quarterbacks, and then one show that's both quarterback and tight end because they're not as deep. Who else to bring on but my guy Jim, dude? A football guy like myself, a guy who I will be arm wrestling at the expo this year. I'm working on it.
Yes.
I'm coming for you, brother. But yes, that's what we're doing today. Thank you everybody for hanging out. Thanks for popping in the chat. Everyone that likes, everyone that subscribes. What we're doing today is I took all kind of the top 10 quarterbacks. We don't need to do 10, but we're going to. And I took the top 10, 12 or so tight ends. Again, it's very rare to have 3, 4, 5 tight ends come from the same class and be awesome. But here's the thing. Sometimes you get a George Kittle where he's like the 8th tight end off the board and he's the best one. So we got to make sure we go deep enough. What we're going to do is we're going to bring him up. We're going to put a tier maker on the screen I put together for us. And then we're going to put them into tiers. Does that sound good to you, Jim?
Absolutely. Let's get on with this thing.
I say we get it up here, dude. Let's check it out. Let me make sure. Look at that.
Thing of beauty.
Cool, dude. That is pretty cool, I will say. It's kind of weird calling your own thing that you put together cool. You guys can make these yourself. I actually saw somebody doing these for video game guns for a game we play, and I was like, I'm stealing that. We're doing that. Me and Jim are getting on and we're doing it. And I put them in alphabetical order here, so no cheating, right? I didn't do I didn't put them in any particular order that would influence how we tier them. So what we'll do is I'll give a quick intro to the player. You give your thoughts, and then I'll come back in and we'll settle on where to put them. Does that sound good, Jim?
I love it.
All right. First one here it is alphabetical, but the first one ends up being fairly divisive in Jackson Dart of Ole Miss. I mean, some people say this guy, there are people saying he's the QB1 now all of a sudden. There are some people saying that he's he shouldn't even go in the first 2 rounds, that he's not a guy. He comes from Ole Miss. He was a super athlete, good prospect, very good baseball player from what I understand, pretty natural in the pocket. And he fits the scheme, 6'2", 225, so he has about the size, 22 years old, so has a lot of room to build. Jackson Dart, Jim, where do you land on him? And for the sake of this, maybe we'll say tier S is like locked in guys we love. We think they're going to go first half of first round maybe. Tier A will be guys that we like to potentially take a shot on in fantasy. Tier B are guys that we think will get drafted and potentially, maybe not right away, but have a role at some point. And then tier C will just be guys we're just not.
So you said he's polarizing and he's a project, right? We know that. If he lands in the right situation, he could, let's say he goes to Pittsburgh. Well, all of a sudden you might have something going on. He got the big arm, the athleticism. His mechanics got better as he went on. Now decision-making is a problem, but a guy like Arthur Smith to clean that up. Accuracy was a problem, but again, if they're just like play action shots. So, and he locks in the first read too much, but maybe in Pittsburgh, that'd be good. But otherwise, it's tough to say with him. So I don't think he should get taken in the first round, but it's a quarterback-hungry league. So he's going to.
Okay, well, that tells, honestly, that just based on the industry right now and the way people are talking about this guy, by you saying, I don't think he should be going in the first round, we can't put this guy in tier A. No, tier S. We can't put him in tier S. Do you think that he belongs in tier A, though? I mean, you mentioned the Steelers. If the Steelers take him, that we're talking pick 21 because they don't pick again till pick 83, unless they feel comfortable trading back, thinking he's going to be there. But how far can you trade back? If you trade back, you have to stay in the first round, because if you trade too far back, now you risk somebody else trading up, right?
It's difficult, right? And
Because you, in your mind, you say, "Oh, I'll just trade back into the group of teams that have Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, the guys that pick at the end of the first, and no one will bother me." But you got to remember that all those really bad teams are one quick trade up away.
last year we had that scenario where 6 or 7 teams desperately needed a quarterback. Now there are a lot of teams that are not good at quarterback, but that same desperation isn't there this year.
Right.
So the trade up thing, I don't know how many teams are trading up. There aren't that many teams right now that say this year we got to get a quarterback. And I don't know how many are going to see Jackson Dart saying we're going to go up and attack this guy. I think some teams would be fine if he falls to them. So that's what makes it interesting, Coop.
Let me ask you, and I know you and I, we admit, of course, that draft capital and landing spot do matter for fantasy football. But we're talking ahead. Let me say hypothetically, there's some rumors that there's a team that really likes this guy. They've had him in for visits. What if he goes to the New Orleans Saints, right in the top 10 or so, to be the heir to Derek Carr? So the immediate production probably won't be there, but the draft capital will be there and the path will be there. What would you think about something like that? I wouldn't put it past Mickey Loomis. The dude loves trading up. He loves reaching.
Yeah, and already there's been talk, the Saints, like you're intimating, they are very much considering taking a quarterback early. So this could be a definite move because they want out from Derek Carr. It's just a matter of what they're going to settle it. This is the type of quarterback they need to attack, a project, because they could deal with Carr another year. So I think fantasy-wise, this year don't expect much. Of course, they could get him starts late in the season because Derek Carr will implode multiple times. So that's definitely going to happen. But the issues that he has, decision-making, accuracy, locking on that first read, and with an offensive line that really has a lot of questions. This isn't a healthy spot like Pittsburgh. Right. This is a spot where it's going to be a hard learning curve for a quarterback that really has a lot to work on. So for fantasy, you're looking at quarterback 27, 28. Because not better than that, because it is not a healthy situation. Clint Kubiak did great last year when he was there, using the rollouts and the boot action to help Derek Carr early in the season before they got figured out. But man, I'm telling you what, I like Kellen Moore, but Kellen Moore is not likely to help a young quarterback.
Yeah, they also, that team had so many injuries. Eric McCoy got hurt week 3, and then from there it was like the wheels fell off the line. Derek Carr himself got hurt at one point. Shaheed got hurt. Olave got hurt. Taysom Hill got hurt. Alvin Kamara got hurt. The whole team got hurt, right? So I don't know. At the end of the day, are you thinking A or B for Jackson Dart here? I feel
he's
like
a B. I think he's a B.
We reserve the right to move him. I feel like at the end of the day, we might end up moving him back up to A.
And it was based on this class. If we start comparing across this class, he may naturally move forward.
I'm moving him to A for now.
I love it. Love it.
I think so. I'm taking, again, I'm the one that has the hand on the mouse. I just think that when you in this class, when it's all relative, right? You know what? It's like if we were doing this exercise and if we really wanted to be sticklers, we could put nobody in tier A. That's the problem, right?
You're right.
That's the problem. Right. And again, my biggest concern with this class is that what happens if it is like the Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota class where we're arguing over these guys and it turns out that there's really that even the top 2 guys end up being nobody. So,
and that is realistic.
It's possible. So I don't know. Maybe we will end up there. Let's put them in B for now.
All right.
If we can't take 10 minutes on every single player.
No.
I knew this could potentially happen. Okay, I'm pulling up honestly going right to another divisive guy. Again, we're going alphabetical order, which brings up Quinn Ewers. The arm talent, right, is there. Yes. Inconsistent. I just look at he had 2 speedsters. He had 3 weapons that are all going to get drafted here in Matthew Gold and Isaiah Bond and the tight end who we're going to talk about later. But just really, again, some people love him, some people hate him. Where do you land on Quinn Ewers?
Again, these are a lot of project quarterbacks. I love the arm, like you said. The arms there. He's accurate. And his size is good for him. He's 214, a little light, but we could live with that. When he was in the pocket, Coop, he wasn't getting rattled. He definitely showed poise there. Now, his mechanics, a little lazy on the footwork. Decision-making, he'd force passes a little too much. But again, these are things. His NFL arm is what matters, and that's going to get him drafted, and that he'll get an opportunity. And as to where he gets drafted, good luck with that one. I mean, you would think second round, maybe third round. I don't see somebody saying we got to jump on this guy in the first round. But if somebody covets that arm talent enough, that could be enough.
That's the thing, is that we've seen people do that in the past, but they usually have a little more playmaking ability. Like people looked at Brett Favre and said, okay, completion percentage is dog water. Like it's unacceptable. But we think that this guy has a strong enough arm. We'll draft him. And the Falcons actually did draft him and they traded him, right? Same thing with Josh Allen. He had the athleticism for sure that you could mold into a quarterback, but it took 3 years for him to have a completion percentage. I mean, his completion percentage as a rookie was 52%, right? So, but this guy doesn't have the mobility. I don't know. Well, also within the tiers, we'll rank guys from left to right too. So for like Quinn Ewers, we can't put him tier A, right?
No.
I think reasonably, given the 10 guys here, I'm not sure he's tier C though. I think someone will give him a shot and he'll hang around for a bit, right?
Yeah, and I know the pocket passer is not exactly the wave of the present and the future, but with all the zone defense, I do think he's going to have coveted. I like him in B.
Okay, we'll put him here, but after Dart. I have Dart ahead.
Yeah, definitely after Dart.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next one here, Dylan Gabriel coming out of Oregon. I mean, I'll get right to it. And again, we've seen guys like this. Everybody wants to point the finger at Drew Brees every single time, but this guy does not have prototypical size. 6 feet. Does he even weigh 200 pounds, Jim? I'm not 100% sure. He's also 24 years old already, hung around for a bit.
Right.
Dylan Gabriel, man, what do you think? Also, with Oregon, I do worry the scheme.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a major issue, Coop. And we see it all the time. Your system, a product of the system, sometimes it works out, but most of the time it doesn't. This is a borderline low-end starter. Not even like a definite low-end starter, borderline. The size is an issue. You're going to get hit in the NFL, but his accuracy, real streaky. Coop, he was even short throws the guy was inaccurate on.
That's what I'm saying.
And when he's in the pocket, he doesn't step up. He bails. And you can't do that in this league. Doesn't anticipate his throws well. No, I don't really see it here.
Seriously.
I'm out on him.
Seriously, because if you're that size, you have to be making magic. That's it. You know what I mean? Drew Brees, magician. Kyler Murray, obviously, like, is just a different type of guy. Like, if you're just I hate to say it, like, if you're just an NFL center that is, 6'6", it just doesn't work. So I don't know. He doesn't have prototypical size for me. So moving on. I mean, again, maybe he'll prove us wrong, but for now, I'll have to put him in that spot. Will Howard, Ohio State, obviously prestigious program. This guy does have the size, 6'4", 235, 23 years old. Checks a lot of the boxes, right? Experience, size. And I did, when you're Ohio State, you have to play a lot of high-level games against a lot of teams that are promising their players they're going to go to the NFL. So you're playing in an NFL scheme, against an NFL scheme. Like Brian Hartline is telling all these wide receivers, hey, come play here, and then you'll go to the NFL. So you get to have the best wide receivers. You also play an NFL scheme against NFL schemes. So you get that. But I don't know. Is there anything special about this guy?
There isn't, but the but's important. Will Howard, the big talk on him is, man, he struggles on downfield passing. This is a league that plays 73% zone 2 straight years. The league is designed to take away the deep pass. You don't have to be a deep passer in the NFL anymore. If you can hit short and intermediate area, you got a pretty good shot to make it. His weakness is in an area that's not going to be a problem in the NFL. Yeah, you occasionally got to make a deep throw, but that's not what the steady diet is. So you know what? I think in terms of fit and with his size, I think he's somebody who can work out. I think you can put him after Ewers and B, but I wouldn't be opposed to saying C either.
I would honestly, I think I'd put him ahead of Ewers. That's where I have him ranked. I just think that with a guy like Quinn Ewers, I just would have loved to see his weapons produce at a higher level. Like all these NFL teams are now saying, well, we're going to bet on the talent because the production wasn't there. Nobody on the team had 1,000 yards, right? And it wasn't necessarily because of distribution. So I feel like I would put Howard here in between these two guys.
I like that.
Are you down with that?
I like
We'll
that.
compromise on that. I mean, like the thing about Howard is that like he could just end up being a backup quarterback in this league, but that's what tier B is, you know. That's what tier B is. Tier B is your professional football player. Tier C is you're not. Tier A is you legitimately could be a starter. Tier S is we believe you're a starter. For anybody just tuning in here, and we're going left to right in terms of ranking, and we're going alphabetical order, which means up next, Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. Definitely, he offered some rushing ability. Pretty efficient. Just and again, maybe this is my just basic eye test. I mean, I played quarterback in high school, but like to really evaluate these guys, you got to know exactly what the schemes are. You got to talk to them, right? You got to be there. But like I just felt like so inconsistent. You know what I mean? Where it's like you got to make the easy plays and then some of the hard. You right? You got to make all the easy plays and some of the hard plays. And if you miss a bunch of the easy plays, I don't know if I can trust you. Do you like Riley Leonard?
No. The way I scouted him, Coop, is this. He's a career backup unless he's in a gimmick offense that could do a little smoke and mirrors, a little Brian Dable stuff with Daniel Jones a few years back. He doesn't have accuracy. Not in the pocket, he won't step up. Mechanics have been sloppy to what I saw. Deep touch, again, underrated, overrated, but he underthrows or overthrows vertical routes. He's not an NFL quarterback in my mind.
No, I'm with you on that. Would you rather have him or Dylan Gabriel if you were picking?
Dylan Gabriel. I really have a low opinion of Riley Leonard.
Okay. I do. I feel like we got to move Jackson Dart up to tier A.
At this point,
I think he's the only guy that we've been even remotely positive on, him or Howard.
I know.
But I just feel like Dart, and we have to factor this in, right? Because this is what happens all the time with running backs, especially, is that if you get drafted early, you get the opportunity. Same with wide receiver too. Like tight end, you're not always guaranteed it, but like you get the opportunity. If a team is going to use a late first round pick on Dart, he's just going to get an opportunity these other guys aren't, in my opinion. So I just think we have to give him that tier A of opportunity, you know? Next one here, we got Kyle McCord, right? Coming out of Syracuse. I mean, I watched a ton of Syracuse tape because I wanted to see Rondé Gadsden. And it's like this guy made a bunch of big time throws, but the competition maybe not so good. And I just feel like that team should have been taking even more risks, you know? So I don't know. Did you watch a decent amount of McCord? I did see a good amount of it. And there was things I loved and things where I was like, man, you got this. I was like, just keep doing what you're doing. Like it would work. A big play would work, and then you wouldn't see another one for the rest of the game.
Exactly correct. And look, I hate to be the negative Nelly in this one, but I see this as another backup. He's an NFL backup. He's not a starting quarterback. When he's under pressure, if he's forced off his spot, he's in big trouble. He's not mobile, and we need mobility. I mean, unless you're this extreme pocket passer, he doesn't have that either. Too much development needed. I'm a C on him.
Yeah. The thing is, nowadays I divide quarterbacks into 3 categories instead of 2. I have pocket passer, mobile, and then rushing QB.
Yes.
Rushing QB is going to run 100 times. But mobile QBs, guys like Trevor Lawrence or Justin Herbert, can move the pocket, right? And then you've got guys like Kirk Cousins, Goff, Stafford that are just staying put and throwing it. Jared Goff has no interest in running. And like I feel like as a prospect, you got to bring at least a level of that, you know?
Yeah.
So McCord, are we putting him last here?
I think so.
Yeah. Here we go. Talking mobile QBs. Perfect segue into Jalen Milroe, one of the few guys that did run the ball a ton. Coming out of Alabama, obviously Alabama football factory. We've had mixed results on guys coming out of here. The other thing that's hard to evaluate with Alabama guys is that like everybody on the team is so good across the board, right? Like no matter what, you've got crazy prospects. You've got prospects leaving Alabama to go be the best player on other teams every year.
Right.
You know, you've got guys playing out of position, and like, you know, with Mac Jones, he had incredible talent. And then at the NFL level, he was just fine. Milroe, what's your read on this guy? We know he can run, which for fantasy football automatically bumps him up a tier, probably, right?
Yes. You know, it's funny, and he's not nearly the same player, but some of the things I see are similar. Again, not the same guy as Anthony Richardson. He can run. He's not 244 like Richardson. All right. I get that. He can throw the ball deep, that big time arm. Like the thing we were hoping for Richardson was I do a lot of RPO, fire the ball deep, and life is good.
Right.
Well, the NFL is one in the short and intermediate area. And I do think Milrow has a better chance to be better in the short and intermediate area than a passer like Richardson. I think the rushing ability for fantasy especially gives him real potential, and I think he can make a difference. And we don't know what the development curve will be, but I'm excited about him, and I do for fantasy. And so I do think he's somebody we have to look at. It'd be really hard to put him in A with any confidence.
He has to go at least an A, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, but I can't put him in B. I can't put him in B.
We definitely can't put him in S. And
No.
I'm with you. He goes ahead of Jackson Dart just because
Yes.
all things considered, they're both in the same spot. Jack Sensen points out like they both, teams love that 5th-year option. You never even like actually have the guy play on their 5th-year option unless it's
right.
Like even Daniel Jones didn't have to play on his, which they should have made him do. But like it's just something that gives you that extra negotiating chip, right?
Coop, real quick on that. When is the league going to figure this out? If your quarterback's any good, you got to pay him after 3 years. That 5th-year option is not even a deal anymore. For a first-round guy, it's not even a thing. The league is eventually going to figure that out, that I'm not trading up into the first round unless you think somebody else has that same mindset. Isn't it useless now to have a 5th-year option on a quarterback?
Exactly. It's like you're not going to you can't. And the thing is, just having that in your locker room floating around is bad for business, right? Like, what kind of confidence are you showing saying, hey, yeah, we're going to give this guy one more tryout year in his 5th year? Like, and if the guy blows up, it's going to cost you so much money. You know what I mean? Like, if he does have the big year, then you're screwed. Like, I guess with Daniel Jones, they should have made him play on it. But even then, that's admitting it's over. So you're absolutely right on that front. But teams do that just for the hypothetical control. We got Joey right in the chat. We got some grades coming in. Coop, S tier. Love it. Coventry, S tier. Totally agree.
Thank you.
Jalen Moreau, A tier. Looks like we're fully in agreement with Joey Wright, too.
Yep, love that. Love Joey.
Let us know in the chat if you guys want guys in different spots, what you think. If we're leaving anybody out, because we only have 10 guys here. There's some other names floating around. Here's a big one here. Shadur Sanders. On field, everything feels pretty good. One thing I do notice about this guy is that he does something that I like from QBs that can run, which I think he can run to some degree, is that he always wants the big play downfield, right? Like Patrick Mahomes can run, but he would rather move the pocket and throw a 45-yard laser, right? So I do like seeing that from Shadur Sanders, something I like from Caleb Williams as well. But then you have the other side of it, brings a bit of a media circus. Apparently did not have a good attitude in the interviews, which, again, we're not part of those, but enough people have said that. He's not particularly big, and he doesn't really run a ton. I mean, where are you at with Sanders, man?
So I'm doing a social media video. It's going through production right now. And so I say real quick at Sanders, he's got the T, teamwork, leadership. We love that. Underneath passing, the U. So he got the underneath passing, very laser precision underneath. But the A is the arm strength, driving it to the perimeter. He doesn't really have that perimeter. T-U-A. Wait a minute. Tua. T-U-A. Tua Tagovailoa.
Oh, boy. Here we go. Is he
I
Tua?
I just see a lot of Tua.
Tua's a good QB, though.
Yeah, but Tua had Mike McDaniel, he had Tyreek Hill, and he had Jalen Waddle. And I think that had a lot to do with why he was able to play well, because honestly, defenses know how to take stuff away. McDaniel's been able to shelter him from some of that, but we know the league, they're basically crowding the middle of the field on Tua because they're saying, you can't beat us at a perimeter and you can't even beat us deep.
He does. Tua does like throw with his eyes shut, right? Like he fakes that handoff and then just throws it, right? Just to a spot. And it works when you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, yeah, but he throws it to a spot. Like when you say system quarterback, he is fine for that system, but like he's just running it the way it's called in the headset, right? So okay, so
where are you at on Sanders?
I think here's the thing. I think he's going to go top 5, which for me, I think we have to put him in S tier. I I think he has to go S tier, but we can't. I definitely don't have him ranked as my top quarterback. But would you rather have him or Jalen Milroe? If so, we'd have to put him in A tier.
It depends on the offensive system. If it's one that's going to go through the pass, which most teams should, it's going to be Sanders. But if I'm going to gimmick it up and I'm going to go heavy RPO in there, then it'd be Milroe. So it really is a styles make fights thing here.
Do you think he gets drafted top 10 in the NFL draft?
I think he has to. Somebody's gonna make the move. Somebody is there. There are a few teams that need quarterbacks, and you've just got to take your shot. The Mitch Trubisky went 4th in the draft. My goodness,
we really should just do this and not put anybody in the S tier.
We should. Nobody belongs in the S tier.
Is that even allowed? I'll have to reach out to tiermaker.com and see if that's allowed.
It ends up being a bad show if we don't put anyone in the S tier. Like the Grinch who stole like the other 11 months, not just Christmas.
Right, yeah. You can't have a negative Nancy show like that. But
right,
you guys listening and actually watching the show and observing the content know how we feel about this class, and we don't really particularly love it. And that's why we have tight ends coming up for you next to round it out with my favorite position, a position Jim loves as well. So let's get these last two up there. This one I'm really interested in. I'm not even going to say anything about this guy myself because I want to hear what you think about Tyler Shaw. I mean, you go right ahead first because I want to hear what you think. This is a very interesting play.
It is, and I do still think despite some nice numbers, I think he's a project. We love the size and the frame and the arm. He can make all the NFL throws. The velocity on those throws goes. He has enough mobility to extend plays. He's tough, but then he struggled to stay healthy, and that's a thing. That's not a small thing. Accuracy on and off, you'd see it sometimes, but other times he just would like fall apart under pressure. Especially the decision making, he'd lock on those reads a little too often. I see the skills, I see the potential. But I think this is not a guy who should be starting in his first year, and I think he would need some good coaching to make that move. I would see him more as a B Coop, but if you go in the A, the potential's there. I see the potential to move him into A.
Well, here's the problem with what you're saying to me, dude. You're saying that he's not ready, but he also was basically Van Wilder in college, like transfer. He's going to be 26 when the season starts, right? Or close. Right. Like he's 25. And I think he actually will be 26 when the season starts. So, like, and you're saying he needs to develop, so he's going to start when he's 27. I mean, we've seen it. But like, you can't put a guy like that in tier A because the guys in tier A we're saying could start right away, or at least could get drafted that way. The thing is, though, I just think teams fall in love with these prospects.
Oh, yeah.
From like, because he was a highly touted prospect. He bounced around all over the place, and people basically, scouts are willing to say, like, okay, Louisville, they didn't use him right. We're going to get him, and we're going to fix him, and he's going to be our guy. Just crazy bouncing around in injury history makes it so tough. Would you rather have him or Will Howard if you were drafting, if you were an NFL team?
I'd probably have Will Howard.
Me too.
Probably Will Howard.
Me too. I would rather have him than Quinn Ewers. So I feel really good about that spot he's in right there.
Yeah, I like it too.
Okay. And then last one here before we move on to tight ends. Big dog, Cam Ward, expected to go 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans, or a team that the Tennessee Titans trade to, but that's where he's expected to go. What are you feeling, Jim?
He's got to go number 1. I get it. A negative Nelly show. Oh, no. Jim, the positive attitude first. I'm going to get this today. His decisions, tries to do too much, leads to risky throws, holds the ball too long. Coop, you can't do that. And then when he played the better defenses, he was not at his best against better defenses. All those things, yeah, he got a strong enough arm. He's somewhat of a playmaker. I don't see him as a long-term starter in the NFL.
You want to know who you just described?
Who?
Zach Wilson.
Where
he got to the NFL level. He can throw seeds, right? He's got a good arm. He got to the NFL level and he thought that he could just run around and extend plays.
Yes.
And he was taking like 15-yard sacks, 10-yard sacks with the Jets. Ooh. If Cam Ward comes out thinking that he can just play like that with these guys out there with NFL caliber blitzers, he's going to have a lot of negative yard plays. Right? So I don't know, dude. Let's see. Add row. There we go. New row at the top. NFL players. Nobody's in it.
Man. Oh,
I can't do that. I
oh.
can't do that. I think that these two guys, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, like they have what it takes to get the opportunity that Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota did get. And I think that Cam Ward, if people set expectations properly for him and make sure his ego is in check, that he could potentially develop into a guy. So you know what, we got to put those guys up top. But we told you guys how we really feel. And do you feel comfortable with what we have here? Is there anyone you would move around?
No, I think this is very well done, Coop. I have no issues with any of the players on this list.
Yeah, this thing is cool, man. I love this. Well, hey, why don't we jump over real quick then and hit on my favorite position? Let's swap over to the tight end tab. Look at that. Beautiful. All right.
Oh,
Folks,
yes.
here we go, the tight end tab. And I actually added another tier here because we have a couple more players. And what I want this to be is S is like could contribute right away, right? Doesn't have to be Brock Bowers. It doesn't have to be Sam Laporta. It doesn't have to be Kyle Pitts, who also, Kyle Pitts had 1,000 yards rookie, but guys that could contribute for you right away. Tier A will be guys that have the pass catching chops in fantasy to contribute right away. Tier B are guys that we think could either be two-way tight ends, like they're good enough at blocking and pass catching to be guys. Tier C may be guys that are just like either just pass catchers, like say like part-time guys like Kylan Granson, or just blocking tight ends, and then D are guys we're just not interested in at all. Sound good?
Coop, one setup question. You're the tight end guru, and I want to hear your take on this. We used to say tight ends take a little while to develop, but we have seen some tight ends break out very quickly in the NFL in recent years. Where is your stance on the generality of tight ends coming into the NFL?
So I actually have a whole article up from 2021 that I wrote on exactly what it takes to be a rookie tight end that breaks out, and the problem that you run into that the recent breakouts have solved the equation for is that you need to have a team that not only doesn't have an incumbent pass catching tight end, but they also add the new tight end and view that player as a top 2 target on the team right away, where they draft a player and say, hey, we got Brock Bowers, so we don't need to have 2 high-end wide receivers. And there's just too few teams right now that have don't have a pass catching tight end. And when I say pass catching tight end, I mean Trey McBride had to wait behind Zach Ertz. Ben Santa had to wait behind Zach Ertz. Rookie Cole Kmet had to block because Jimmy Graham took just enough of those like end zone targets. Same goes for when Jimmy Graham was with the Falcons before. It's like these guys have to wait. And not to mention, there's just a lot of the teams that could use a tight end have 2 wide receivers that are just too good. Like, let's say Mike Gesicki didn't get extended. People were like, oh, the Bengals should draft a tight end. That, like, how many targets are available after Jamar Chase and after T. Higgins? Very rare to have 3 guys on the same team get 100+ targets. So when you're thinking of these guys, you draft capital factors in for this reason. And I'll make an example right away. The New York Jets, they have Garrett Wilson and they have Breece Hall. After that, they don't have anyone that deserves 100 targets.
No.
If they pick a tight end at where they pick 7 or trade back to like 10, 11 and take a tight end, they're not only committing to that tight end with high draft capital, but they're forgoing the opportunity to draft a high-end wide receiver that could then get those targets. And then what's out there? Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, like they're committing to this player being a top 2 target on the team, which is why when we think about who belongs in the S tier, it needs to be a player that you're willing to say not only goes to a team in the top 10, top 15, top 20, but they commit to that player as a top 2 target on the team. We're talking teams like the Patriots, the Jets. I mean, there's a lot of them. The Cowboys, you could make an argument for the Jaguars, but like that's what you're saying. So that's what S tier is going to be. A tier is going to be your classic. Okay, we believe in this guy. If he ends up behind Evan Engram on the Broncos, then now he's on the traditional 2-3 years until he's the guy. And then we like those guys. Tier B are guys that like end up behind other guys. But like Delaney Walker was behind Vernon Davis for 7 years. Yeah, and he made his way, right?
Oh,
and
he
then
did.
Tier C are guys that we just don't ever think are going to be full-time players. Tier D are guys that we think have a risk of going completely undrafted.
Or a blocker only.
Or just a pure blocker only, yeah. Okay. All right, well, let's get started. And the first one, again, another divisive player, Elijah Arroyo. this is a guy that people really like. The problem is that he suffered serious injuries,
Yep.
missed a bunch of time, looked good at the Senior Bowl, but at the Senior Bowl, he hurt his knee, didn't run at the combine, didn't run at his pro day. So this is one of those ones where it's like, do you believe your eyes and your heart, right? Not even your eyes. We didn't even see enough of them. Or like, do you just kind of say this is too risky? So, Jim, where are you at, man? Because this is one where I'm
I
actually
know.
fairly undecided on. I could be swayed. Theo
I mean-
Greminger loves him because he went to the Senior Bowl, but the Senior Bowl can trick you a little bit.
He's a pure pass catcher, and for fantasy, we love that. But like you said, the injury history is significant, and it's not going to get any easier in the NFL. So, on that said, no, I probably say C, because the talent tells me better than that. B, but I don't think this is too bad. This is too much of a problem. Injuries are a massive issue.
You're too mean, I think, Jim. I think I'm taking your side, and I'm dragging him up to B, I think.
Well, it's
I
good.
think just because, and the other part of it is that like people are like, oh, what about the play where he had like 20 miles per hour? I mean, that was just a perfect throw by Cam Ward. Like he wasn't even looking, and the ball was right there at the perfect time, right down the seam. I mean, like, but I could see it too. Like, and he does at least have the size, right? Like, it's not like he's 6'3", 235 like Evan Engram was coming out.
He's like 244.
240. Yeah, but he's like 6'5". I mean, like,
Right.
he's got the 6'4", 244. Yeah. Maybe he is C tier. No, we gotta Theo.
He's borderline.
Theo would be
benefit of the doubt.
I think he's the perfect guy to go first here because he can be our litmus test. And again, like Jackson Dart, when we moved him up last time, maybe we do end up moving him down. But I think now he's a good guy to weigh people against, to weigh guys against here. Next one here, I've gotten a lot of different opinions on Jalen Conyers, right? He does have prototypical size, 6'4", 265. Never really produced at a high level, but there's a lot of guys where you go back and look at their college stats and they weren't great. I mean, namely Travis Kelce, George Kittle. I mean, but their highlights were a little bit better. Where do you fall on Jalen Conyers?
I love the physicality in the hands, and to me, that he can work against all the zone defense. The route running is not great, but he may not need to do that. And his testing, 46 percentile 40, but at 260 pounds, that doesn't bother me. Right. I love the 100 percentile agility, 69% explosiveness, not elite, but very good. I think this could be a good receiver who could block a bit as well. I do think this guy definitely fits in the NFL. I don't know if I like him enough to move him to A, but I think I like him enough at the B.
Yeah, and again, draft capital is going to be huge for this guy. The thing with Texas Tech is that it wasn't a good scheme for him. Like, he never got more than like 30. I think one year he had 37 catches, but like most years, like 30 catch guy. But he does have the size, and that's the thing is that like,
yes,
here's the problem that I run into every year, Jim. I fall in love with these guys that are basically big wide receivers. I want them all to be Evan Engram. I want them all to play the slot. I want them all to be Mark Andrews, catching passes out of the slot and doing all that. But some of those guys will get that chance. Most of those guys won't. And those guys that don't end up being the Cameron Brates and Anthony Ferksers and Jacob Hollisters and all those guys. So when the draft comes around, it's going to change everything. But I want to rank for upside here. I think Conyers definitely is a guy with his size that if the draft is favorable to him, we'll move him up. But I also worry that the teams are just drafting him for his size. I'm willing to put him in B.
That's where I like him. That's where I like him as well.
Okay. Mitchell Evans here. This one, a lot of people are higher on him than I am for the most part. But, Notre Dame has had some good tight ends. 6'5", 260. Doesn't have the like crazy movement ability, but he's just like a very balanced guy, I would say. But guy that, could end up being special teams guy. I mean, what do you think?
Yes, a blocker. He's a blocker.
Yeah,
15% agility, 13 percentile explosiveness, 46 percentile 40. Doesn't run routes well. Injury history. Blocker, special teams guy. He's a D.
D.
He's a
Okay.
D.
I was gonna say that D are guys that I don't think are gonna be in the NFL at all. I think this guy's gonna be in the NFL.
Okay, and I was saying blocker too. Remember we said
Oh yeah, just a blocking tight
just
end.
because of this position. This is the only position where you could play but not be a fantasy factor.
Right.
Brandon
And
Pettigrew back in the day.
yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a bunch of those guys that like. I mean, Drew Sample. The thing is, the NFL. Drew Sample went in the second round, and there was no illusions that he was going to be a pass catcher ever. Same with Darnell Washington. Third round. Like
Right.
yeah, it's like there's no illusion that they were going to truly ever develop as pass catchers. So the NFL might like the guy. That's why I'm saying
Yeah, put him in C then. Put him in C.
Yeah, because I mean, there might be guys. Well, we'll see when we go through if there were guys that were just like, I don't even think this guy's an NFL player.
But man, that testing was brutal at the combine. Brutal.
This is fantasy football. I'm just not interested. You're right.
No,
the bottom tier should be we have no interest for fantasy football. All right, Jim, I will let you go first on this player because, again, this is one where people are all over the place. People are very excited about Harold Fannin,
and they should be. 231 pounds is really light. Probably more, full-time receiver because I don't want a 231 guy blocking a whole lot. Testing was not great, Coop. 62nd percentile 40, 39th percentile explosive. Agility was good. And that's a good sign for zone. 77th percentile for agility. We like that. And look, gains yards after the catch well. The route running's not great, but I'm not worried about that. Again, a lot of sit down in zone. We can do that. But he can, if it's schemed up well, I like him a bit. I do think there's a player with the college production. It was insane production. And the testing bothers me. But I think in this NFL, he is going to be weaponized. And I think a good number of teams will find out how to use him. I definitely like him in the B range. And I might even, if you were saying A, I wouldn't fight with you a whole lot over that either.
I thought you were going to, after the way you just described him, I thought you were going to put him in the S tier. So I will say this about Harold Fannin. I cannot put him in the S tier.
No.
I'm willing to put him in the A tier because of the upside case.
Yes.
The upside case is that a team looks at him and says, we're going to use him as our slot receiver because he's not a good blocker when you compare him to tight ends. But when you compare him to guys like Tyler Boyd and Christian Kirk and Wan'Dale Robinson, he's a incredible blocker. That's what you have to realize about the modern NFL. That Travis Kelce, the value to him is he can play wide receiver, but he blocks better. Like George Kittle is a much better blocker than Travis Kelce, but Travis Kelce is a better blocker than virtually every wide receiver. And that's the upside case for Fannin. The downside case is that he's not particularly athletic. 4.7 is like anything under 4.6 is 90th percentile. Anything under 4.65, you can break off big plays. Guys that run 4.7 or slower very, very rarely break off 40 plus chunk yard plays. So all those chunk yard plays he was breaking off in the MAC, not necessarily going to be the case. Also, like he set the record at the MAC. Everyone loves it. Corey Davis set like every record there is in the MAC, right? Corey Davis is the record for the most receiving yards ever by a college wide receiver in a career at Western Michigan, which is the same division, right? So you have to factor that into the equation here. I compare him to Jatavian Sanders. That's my comp for this guy. And then people are, well, the funny thing is, Jim, that people will be like, oh, what the heck? And they don't realize, first of all, I love Jatavian Sanders.
Mm-hmm, me too.
Second of all, Jatavian Sanders is a professional football player. So if you're Harold Fannin, you love that comp too, because Jatavian Sanders is rich. You know what I mean?
And he was starting to play. He was starting to come on.
He's starting to play. He's playing in the NFL. They moved on from Ian Thomas. Like these guys are nervous that they might just face plant. You know what I mean? Like it's like when people were talking to Amir Abdullah and they were like, "Oh, can you be the James White?" And Amir Abdullah was like, "James White? That's a gold-plated name. That's the guy that has the record for most receptions in a Super Bowl." It's like of course I would love to be James White. You know what I mean? Like, of course, like for me, if Harold Fannin is JT Sanders, that's a guy. So I'm putting him in the A tier here.
I like that.
Because of the upside. But the downside is that you have a 4.7 guy that isn't a full-time player because he's rotating because he can't play inline blocking tight end. And if you have that, then you have nothing. There's only 10 or 12 tight ends we start in fantasy football.
Right.
And if your tight end is tight end 11, you got one of the worst tight ends in your league. That's what I've been telling people, right? It's like, I'm sorry, dude. If your tight end is number 11 out of number 12, then you need a new tight end. So, like,
you do.
There's only going to be so many guys. And for everybody that might be complaining about maybe the negativity on this, I pulled up every draft class for the past, like, forever, actually, is what I did. And then I sorted them all by career fantasy points. The draft that had the highest scoring tight end 3 was Mercedes Lewis.
Wow.
Very rare to have 3 or 4 guys all be stars. The current draft that is the contender to be the best class, excluding the ones that just have 2 really good guys and the third guy sucks. Like obviously the Rob Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham in the same class is great. But like the best contender now is 2017 with Kittle, Engram, Njoku, Gesicki.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a really good class. But like it's Jonnu Smith and Njoku. Either way, the bottom 2 guys in that class haven't scored as many points as Mercedes Lewis. It's so hard to find like high end guys from the same class. So I tweeted it out. The tweet's up there. But anyway, let's move on to the next guy here. Terrence Ferguson. If we get 3 or 4 guys from this class, it'll be one of the best all time, is the point that I'm making. So Terrence Ferguson had a very good combine. People really very good combine among the people that actually participated.
Right.
But 4.63 is within that range where we say, okay, good, right? Like, okay, perfect. Anything under 4.65, I like. 4.66 under that would be ideal, but we'll take it. A 2-way enough guy too, right? At Oregon,
enough.
Scheme was friendly. So what do you think, man?
You know what? I say put him in the S range. He's a receiver.
Wow.
He's a receiver, dude. The testing. See, I get sold on the testing. The general managers in the league, they've been asked to get rid of it. No, they value it. Explosive is your get off the line. He tested great there. Your speed, obviously, is your speed. Didn't test for agility. Not a lot of players do these days. And really, he showed he was a good receiver. The testing was there. The athleticism, reliable hands, red zone threat. I think he translates, Coop.
Yeah, I do as well. And the thing about the testing is that of all the positions, believe it or not, because people are like, oh, yeah, you want fast running back, you want fast wide receivers. 40 time matters most. Long speed matters most for tight ends than any other position because they are playing against guys. Like with wide receivers, it's corner versus corner, and everybody runs a 4.3, everyone runs a 4.4, whatever, right? And the guy covering you is probably faster than you. At tight end, though, when you go up against linebackers and safeties, there's a reason George Kittle has like 20 plays of 40 yards or longer, including multiple 70-yard plays, because he's faster than linebackers and safeties.
Yep.
And Ferguson can at least outrun some of those guys. I don't know if I could put him in tier S, but I'm willing to put him as our top tight end currently at tier A. Is that reasonable for you?
Yeah, I could definitely live with A. Definitely.
Because I think that to be
S is hard.
To be a tier S, yeah, because the conditions we set earlier, for anyone just joining us now, you need to be drafted at a level in the draft where a team is committing to make you a top pass catcher on the team right away.
And that's not going to happen.
Well, I mean, he could go in the second round to a team that's like kind of scraggly, right? Like,
but you're probably right.
Yeah. What if he goes to a team like there's a lot of teams that just don't have a clear, like if he's more athletic than Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson ran a 4.8. If he's on that team, and they don't draft a wide receiver, then maybe right away. But I think that's a whole group of tier A where it's like you throw them into a room that's uncertain, they could emerge, right? And I think that's where Ferguson lives. But I like him a lot too. People are probably going to disagree with us having him ahead of Fannin, but like in terms of floor, his floor is higher because he can play in line. He can play in line. And Fannin, you'd be nuts. You'd be making a big mistake to make Fannin play in.
It's true.
Yeah. Speaking of guy that cannot play in line, Oronde Gadsden. That name as a Patriots fan, I'll always remember his father as a Dolphins cornerback, right?
He played receiver. And he was great in the red zone. Oronde Gadsden was great in the red zone. Yeah. I mean, I looked back, but I watched him play. I remember because I'm old. Yeah, I remember Oronde Gadsden.
Yeah,
he was
solid,
a good receiver.
So Oronde Gadsden 2 went to Syracuse. So of course, lower level competition. When you look at him, he does not look like a tight end. Very wiry, but very good contested catches, and definitely can make some plays. How are you feeling about him? Do you think he'll translate, or do you think he'll just be another guy that like is a tweener and doesn't really work?
Well, when you use the word tweener, I get it, but I'm excited about Gadsden.
Good.
I really look 223. But we talk about the zone defense in the league. You need zone beaters. It's the world we live in. That's not changing for the next 3 to 5 years minimum. Gadsden fits that. You need a joker. He's a joker. You could move him around. You could make him an H-back. You could put him in line. I mean, put him outline in the slot. Yes, he's a mismatch. Elite hands, runs routes well. I love the pedigree that his dad was a receiver in the NFL. That's a huge deal to me. I think he fits. It's going to be really hard to put him high on the list because at 223, the deck's kind of stacked against him. But upside wise, I could see him being the third or fourth best pass catcher in his class.
Right. That's why for me, I think that for given the downside, right, he has to either go at the end of tier A or the beginning of tier B.
Yes.
I mean, the thing, dude, he like, besides Tyler Warren, who just kind of led in pretty much everything, he had the second most contested catches, and he made it look easy. And that's a skill that potentially can translate. It's kind of going against lesser competition. What do you think? I'll let you make the final call. At the end of at the end of A or top of B?
My heart says the end of A, but my head says the top of B, and I think my head is the objective reality.
It is true. Again, this is for fan, like when you and I have too much football guy in us in terms of like real football. Because if we were just doing fantasy, we would gladly just put him a tier A.
Quickly.
But I think the real football implications of what it takes, the unique scenario, like the other problem, Jim, is that like Doug Peterson's not in the league anymore. Chan Gailey, like what if Chan Gailey came back? That's why I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Then this guy could be Eric Decker. You know what I mean?
Empty out the backfield.
Right?
Throwing the ball.
Because you watch Chan Gailey with Antonio with Tony Gonzalez, and then he used Eric Decker like that. Then he used David Nelson for the Bills. Remember David Nelson?
Oh, 86. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he used Mike Gesicki with the Dolphins. It's like, bring him back. Just like bring him into, if you draft Ronde Gaston, bring in Chan Gailey as a
package deal.
Be like, give us a package of plays. So hey, tell you what, he's a tier B, but if a team drafts him and brings in Chan Gailey to consult, tier S.
That's awesome.
Right,
fabulous.
Here we go. Gunnar Helm. This is out of Texas. And again, this was another player where, depending on how you feel about Quinn Ewers, you might bump him up or down. If you don't like Quinn Ewers, which a lot of people don't like Quinn Ewers, and they're using that as a reason to bump up Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden and Gunnar Helm, and you might like him. He's prototypical size, 6'5", 250. We'll take that. Now, I mean, you kind of want 260, but not everybody's going to be Gronk, Good after the catch, despite his size, not that great of a run blocker, but he can't, like, he's not a guy like Gadsden who just is never going to be inline tight end. He can do it. So what are your feelings on Gunnar Helm?
His testing was so bad.
I don't have
consider him.
I
15th
don't have
percentile 40, 0 percentile explosiveness, 32nd percentile agility. Special teamer at best. Yeah, maybe he gets some blocking. I know. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Not even C?
No, I don't see a world. I don't see any path for him to be a successful receiving option. Yeah. He may have a 20 catch season on his resume at some point.
Right. And the problem I run into is that, like, how you get the yak matters to me. Like when guys are getting screens, when you have two guys as fast as Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden, there's going to be so much opportunity for yak.
Yep.
I don't care about the pure statistic. I care about how you get it, right?
Yep.
Break some tackles, win in man-to-man, which it's so hard to find guys that actually win in man-to-man. It's an interesting spot. So, okay, let's go to Luke Lachey here. Number one bonus for this guy is that he went to Iowa, right? Tight end factory.
Yep, it sure is.
They know how to do it because it's the pedigree, the Royal Tight End committee over there. He's 6'6", 247. To me, he's a bit of a project. He's got to get bigger. He's got to fill out that frame. He's got to get just bigger, faster, stronger, which, NFL teams can do that. But what are your thoughts on this guy?
I don't see him as a good route runner. I don't see him as a player that can create after the catch. I think he's a situational receiver who blocks be a decent overall NFL tight end. I see him as a C.
C, yeah, that's what I was thinking too, where it's like, I can see that he got the tight end treatment there, at Iowa, and then if somebody can develop him, then he can make it happen. But I'm not I just think that like he's just going to end up being in a room somewhere. He's one of those guys that's in the room, and you're just like, oh yeah, he's there, But like, I'm trying to think of like guys that fit that mold for me, where it's just like they're always kind of there as like a tight end too, maybe like a Durham Smythe, but he's not nearly as big or as good a blocker as Durham Smythe.
Exactly.
Probably Hunter Long, where he's just kind of floating
Yeah.
around. Okay, here we go. Colston Loveland. We got some with both of these. The alphabetical order has kind of backloaded a lot of these ones. Colston Loveland just looks really good as acting as a wide receiver. I've noticed very strong at the point of contact, just like creating separation on slants. Like Rob Gronkowski he didn't even really pretend he wasn't giving you that forearm shiver at the top of routes. He was just kind of doing it. But Loveland, I feel like, is pretty good at that. Didn't break a ton of tackles. Didn't do much versus man-to-man, but could be because of the scheme, Jim. What did you see on that?
Look, I think he's an elite athlete. I think he has very good hands, as you indicated. He's versatile. You'll play him in line if you have to. You don't really want to. You can. You can move him out wide. You can move him in a slot. To me, this is a player that acclimates extremely well. I think he'll be drafted very aggressively. I think he'll develop his frame over time and become even better. But to me, Coop, I like him in the S range. I think he's going to be a contributor right away.
Absolutely. I think right spot right away. If he lands with the Jets, he'd be a top target on the team. If he lands with the Patriots, he'd be a top target on the team. If he lands with the Broncos, then we sit back in Dynasty and say, oh, this guy's going to be the joker for them for the next, maybe for the first 2 years he waits behind Ingram, but he learns from Evan Ingram. It's like, I just have a hard time finding a landing spot for this guy that I don't love, except for maybe the Bengals, where it's like, they're locked into two wide receivers. They have Mike Gesicki, but you don't want him to be the next Mike Gesicki. But like, I just don't think they would. There's no reason for them to do that.
No.
So I love him. He's great. The question is whether he's the number one guy or the number two guy, and we'll figure that out. Next guy here, Mason Taylor. The number one strong point for this guy is pedigree, right? Like teams love that. His dad is Jason Taylor. His uncle is Zach Thomas. I mean,
my gosh.
Yeah. Did you know that one? That his uncle?
The second one I didn't know. The first I did.
So Jason Taylor apparently married Zach Thomas's sister.
Wow.
So yeah, dude. So this guy is like the Dolphins obviously got to kick the tires on this guy just because, right?
Yeah, they do.
But again, LSU's not been super friendly to the tight ends because of how. But it's a wide receiver factory, so teammate score is high. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, pure pass catcher, very natural, smooth hands. He finds openings extremely well, which again, in the version of the NFL today with zone, that's very, very important. Yards after the catch, he could definitely produce there. He's got to build his frame a bit. I like him in the B range. I don't know if I like him ahead of Conyers or before. Can't really tell you on them. I like him in the B range. What do you think?
I think I have him ahead of Conyers. And
that's where I was thinking.
Yeah, I have him ranked in the same tier in my rankings, which are at fantasyalarm.com. If you're a fantasy member, I have him in the same tier as Arroyo and Gadsden, where I say the right spot, this guy can be a guy. He has a better floor than Gadsden for sure, but we don't necessarily care about floor in fantasy football. And in the NFL draft, the floor for everybody is bust. 100%. It is. It's a fact. Yeah. Trent Richardson was a can't miss guy. Corey Davis was a can't miss guy. Busts, right? So like the floor for a lot of these guys is bust. So we don't care as much about floor, but I mean, he's 6'5", 255, just a little bit of bulking, and this guy could be a full two-way tight end. I think that teams that want to use a two-way tight end should take a look at this guy. Jonnu Smith got picked up by the Dolphins. He could go there to be the heir to Jonnu Smith. He can block, he can run routes. Clint Kubiak, maybe if they do get rid of Noah Fant, right? Because Kubiak's going to bring the fullback, do his little two-way tight end business.
Yep.
Good spot for him there. So, but not necessarily spots he can contribute right away, but I like him. We might have to move Conyers to tier C.
Yeah, maybe so.
I think
that's a good call.
The more we're looking at these guys, the more I think he fits right in there where it's like,
well, I'll be there.
Kick the tires on like a practice squad or something like that. All right, two guys here left. Big dog here, Tyler Warren. And the question isn't whether he's a top tier guy, tier S or tier A. The question is, do we rank him 1? Do we rank him 2? Do we maybe not even love him that much? He's an older prospect, didn't really break out until the last year. But when he did, I mean, he was talk about being the main character, right? He was the absolute main character
Nope, absolutely.
in the Penn State movie. So, Jim, did I miss you there?
So give me 1 second, Coop. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure. So
Right.
yeah, just
So there we go. So my issue on Warren is everybody's going to love Warren, and I'm going to be the oddball that doesn't. He's going to be a fine player, all right, but his route tree is very limited right now. I don't think he has a big athletic ceiling, and I don't think he's a consistent blocker. Yeah, he had good hands. I get it, and smart awareness of zones, using the red zone. I think people are going to get all hopped up after what we saw last year when we had the great year from Brock Bowers. I get put Tyler Warren as high as everybody else does. I get it. I just think he's more likely to not be the guy we think he is.
right. And there are some red flags. Like he didn't beat out guys like Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger and these guys that were also at Penn State. But that could also be a reason why. I mean, the thing that I look back to is that this guy was a quarterback. They brought him in as a quarterback. They had to convert him to a tight end. So it does take a little bit of time. We've seen converted quarterbacks thrive. Like Logan Thomas had a top 3 season once. And I mean, it is fun to watch him. Like, they put him in the Wildcat. They do all that. But does that translate to the next level? Right.
I'm worried about him.
I'm a little worried, but I still think that just watching this guy, I mean, you go back and watch George Kittle, the highlights of George Kittle in college, like he has a football IQ
Yes.
and a willingness to dive, to find the creases, to just do whatever it takes. And you see a bit of that from Warren. Like this guy is when you talk about like guys that catch the ball and fall down, this guy doesn't have any of that in him. So the question for me is, I think that we rank him in S tier, but after Lumley. I think he's still going to go that early. He's going to get the opportunity, but it's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee, right? So okay, and then there's one last guy here that's kind of popped on the radar. We'll talk about him real quick. Ben Urasek. He transferred to Georgia for his last year after playing at Stanford. He's been getting some hype lately. Again, kind of tough for him to go after some of these other guys, but last guy here, and we'll get it done. Urasek, I'll just ask you, is he a guy or is he not? I think he's either C tier or D tier.
Yes.
But there's some intriguing aspects, but he never really did anything, even at Georgia.
He's not physical enough to play in the NFL. His play strength's too low. Can't block. He can't separate he cannot separate as a receiver. You said C or D. I'm right on that fringe.
Yeah, I think D. Would you rather have him or Mitchell Evans?
I'd rather have Mitchell Evans, actually.
Me too. And I'd rather have Gunnar Helm than Mitchell Evans. So that's it, folks. Thank you so much, Jim, for popping in. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Those are our final tiers. And you know what? Tell you what, just as a quick recap, here are our final tiers for the quarterbacks. We had Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders in the top tier, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, A tier, Will Howard, Show and Quinn Ewers in the B tier, Dylan Gabriel, Riley Leonard, Kyle McCord in the C tier. And then for our tight ends, we got Loveland and Warren, cautiously on Warren a little bit from Jim in the S tier, A tier, Ferguson and Fannin for big upside, B tier, Aronde Gadsden, as the ultimate high risk, high reward fantasy type guy, Elijah Arroyo as the mystery box, and Mason Taylor as the pedigree guy. It's so interesting how it's like you've got 3 very different guys in that tier, but I think they all belong perfectly there. Jalen Conyers is the guy who we like the best of the rest. And maybe even if there was like another tier, he'd be in a tier of his own here, I think, because we do like him better than the rest of these guys. Luke Lachey out of the tight end factory in Iowa, and then Gunnar Helm, Mitchell Evans, and Benjamin Urasek, aka Benny Eurostep, in the D tier there. So thank you so much, Jim. Plug what you got going on. I'm excited to come on your draft show.
Yeah, cannot wait to have you on Monday before the NFL draft. We'll post this up on socials, but RotoWire will be having another short marathon. We'll have a number of outstanding guests. We'll have the Coop, the Bender, and a bunch of other people on. You'll want to catch that insights before the draft. Otherwise, catch me on the X and other socials at Jim Coventry NFL. I'll always let you know what I'm up to.
Absolutely, man. Jim, you're the absolute best. Thanks for joining. Everybody else, thank you, Joe.